You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Proof Text. I'm Michael Halcomb. I am here with my buddy J.M. Smith, the sensei himself. You're rocking the new Disciple Dojo gear, huh?
Yeah, man. I had to make a little hat. I found this cool iron-on. It's like the wave, the ukiyo-e wave. So it's like, I'm gonna put that on my blank hat. And
Right on.
yeah, so
Looks good.
They're not for sale, unfortunately. It would be pretty cool if they were, but
Nice.
Yup. How's it with you? What's going on, man?
Man, I've been things are crazy around here. Just dealing with denominational issues, and it's never fun. So
No.
kind of takes it out of you. You know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been going on for a while, draining me. But keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah,
So,
it's a bummer for sure.
In the thick of teaching, it's kind of cool, man. I'm teaching a first time ever teaching this, but I teach for Bethel University, so out of Indiana. I'm teaching a poetry class this semester, which is really fun for me. So,
like poetry in general or biblical poetry?
Yeah, just poetry in general.
Yeah.
The students are writing a lot of poetry. We're reading a lot of poetry, and
a lot of hip hop lyrics.
Yeah, I was looking at Eminem's "Lose Yourself," the first verse of that in class yesterday, and showing them some of the rhetorical moves he's making, and so sometimes, but learning different structures and sonnets and villanelles and sinestras and all kinds of different things. I said not sinestra, but anyways, yeah, different poem structures, and kind of fun. Yeah, enjoying it. But yeah, so this is 10 questions. It's been a minute. So 10 questions. JM and I just chop it up by looking at a single verse. We each get 5 questions, ask a total of 10 questions about it. And it kind of always spring these verses on JM. JM, you need to do that, spring the verse sometime. But
yeah, let's do it. I need to find a good random Bible generator.
Yeah, I found it. Google it, random Bible verse generator. So I'm gonna throw the text on the screen here. JM doesn't know what's coming, and we're gonna start with the Old Testament today. We're gonna go to Deuteronomy. If you're watching, then you'll be able to see it on the screen. If you're just listening, that's fine too. We're in Deuteronomy 8, in particular at verse 6. Deuteronomy 8:6, and we're going to see what 10 questions we get from this. The idea, this is how, as Bible interpreters, scholars, teachers, preachers, that we want to approach the text, just with observation lenses on, noticing things, and then asking questions. That opens up the world of the text when we start to ask questions. So, yeah, Deuteronomy 8:6. JM, you want to take the first question, or you want me to?
I am still jumping there.
All right.
1 second. I got to.
I'll read it in English here. It says, this is the NIV. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him.
All right. Yeah, I'll do the first question.
Right.
So my first question is context. Obviously, who's talking to who? And is this talking to a group of people or to an individual? And I ask that because the first word is observe is actually a singular. It's command in the singular. Vishamarta. So that would, you'd think it's one person talking to another person, but the context might not bear that out. In fact, the context doesn't bear that out. So yeah,
So
that's what I'd want to know. Why is that first
who's
verb
talking to
singular?
whom? Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, so I'm really interested as far as like English and the Hebrew goes. The first word is observe. So we just saw that that's shamar, and the gloss, the simple gloss, is usually to keep or obey. And then there's a lot of other glosses. But I'm really wondering about the sense of this. They've not rendered it keep or obey. They've rendered it observe. When we think about observe in English, that can carry different senses, right? Like, oh, I observed you doing your grocery shopping the other day.
Mm-hmm.
So, is observe really the best rendering of this? Does it add ambiguity? Does that's my question. Is observe really the best translation here? And if not, what is?
All right. My second question is, so laleketh, to walk in his way, and that's literally to walk in his way, in his ways. And what does NIV have? Walking in obedience to him. So yeah, it's adding a little more, but how else in scripture do we see walking in the way or in his ways? What does that refer to? What are his way? Why is walk the phrase that's used rather than like live according to his command or something like that? Does
Yeah,
that
that's great.
Yeah, does that have wider nuance?
Well, I've been preaching through Mark a lot. I'm writing commentary in Mark right now. And from the start, so I'm at from Mark 1 up through Mark 10, which is where I'm at now. I'm preaching almost at the end of Mark 10. There's a phrase that's used all the time in Mark's gospel. It's inodo, which is on the way. And so you have this, and it's a prepositional phrase. So you have this prepositional phrase here, baderek. So I'm wondering, when Mark was writing, was he drawing on this or something like this? This Hebrew idiom baderek. So is there a connection between baderek and inodo? So that's kind of a very scholarly question, I guess, but yeah, that's what comes to mind.
That's a good one. So I would want to first ask, I'm going to ask two questions back to back or after yours. So the first part of it is the penultimate word. So uliyara, and fear, and then it says him. So, and fear. Why does NIV translate that as revere, not be afraid of him? Since it has both of those words, or both of those meanings, rather. American Standard translates it to fear him. King James translates it to fear him. But NIV has revere. Yeah, so that's my question. That's the first part, and I'll come back after yours and
okay,
the second.
So I'm looking at, there's a lot of translation questions today. So I'm looking at the word Yahuwah, or however Jehovah, like that's probably Jehovah's probably not the right way to do it, but Yahuwah, which a lot of people, Jews would pronounce like Adonai or something to that effect, and a lot of Christians do that as well. So I'm just raising the question of why is Yahuwah translated as Lord rather than Yahuwah, transliterated, or Jehovah or something like that.
Right.
Now that opens up a whole can of historical debate. So
Yeah.
there you go. There's a question that leads you down a huge rabbit trail. I think Andrew Case actually did. He's been on the podcast before, but he's done 4 or 5 blog posts. And if I remember correctly, I think he's making the case that we should transliterate or translate it as Jehovah. I think, if I remember correctly. So, anyways, you guys can Google that. And
Yeah, that's interesting. I would not agree with that at all. So I'd be interested to hear his case for it. Okay, so my next question about that last phrase, ulira oto, I believe oto, you can also translate it. I mean, that's a definite direct object with a masculine singular ending, but that's also the way you would say it rather than him. And so, like, and walking his ways and fearing, and you shall fear, I guess it's an infinitive, and to fear him. What would make them translate this as to fear him, referring to God, and not to fear it, meaning the way, God's way, or revere it, or about Torah as a whole. I mean, I could answer, but we're not allowed to. But that's what I would kind of drill down and like, all right, why do we just assume? I mean, I think we correctly assume it, but why do we just correctly assume that this oto is he rather than it, and referring back to God? So that's just the kind of question I would ask, to just examine all of the things that we take for granted, some of the basic things that we may not think about. The whole point of this is asking those questions and being curious about the text. And so, yeah, that's what I would ask.
Yeah, I should correct myself. He doesn't say Jehovah. He says Yahweh, or Yahweh, Yahweh, more particularly. So he'll spell it. I don't want to misrepresent somebody else's view.
Okay, well, that's good then. I retract my disagreement.
Yeah. So I misspoke. It was just knocking around in the back of my brain somewhere. So he's Yahweh, and then he says, I personally pray with the usage Yahweh to God. So that's kind of interesting. Or Yahweh. So yeah.
That gets back to a fun total rabbit trail. But when I was at seminary learning Hebrew, we had 2 people teaching Hebrew at the same time. Gary Pratico was teaching, and that's who I had. And then Dwayne Garrett was teaching his Hebrew. And they both were teaching from their own grammars. And they both were, Pratico taught to pronounce the Vav as V, like a modern Hebrew.
Yeah.
And Garrett taught to pronounce it, and Doug Stewart followed him, pronounce it as Wah, like a wow. And they would both, it was kind of like the Sharks versus the Jets, like 2 rival Hebrew pronunciation and their students at the same time, which I always thought that was kind of fun. So I'm pretty indifferent on which of is correct, because I have so much respect for Pratico and Dwayne Garrett that I'm like, I mean, both are smart guys, so they have good reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting how one letter, right, can cause such dispute. You get the same thing with iota in Greek. You just get these like dividing lines. But yeah, so I don't even remember what number question I'm on. Is it 4?
I think I've asked 4.
Okay.
This
So
will be
it
your
says observe. Go ahead.
Yeah, this will be your 4th.
Okay, observe the commands. What commands? The mitzvot? What commands or commandments are we talking about here? Yeah.
All right. I think I would ask, like, why does it just, so usually in Torah you'll have God will talk about, or Moses will talk about God's mitzvot, his commands, and his hukot, his statutes or ordinances, and it would be like I can't remember the third term, but they'll all be used together a lot of times, not all the time, from what I remember. And so this time it doesn't say anything about his statutes or ordinances. It's just his commands. So I would just I want to know, is there something to that? Is there an order? Are his commands different than his statutes, different than his ordinances, or are those synonymous and it's just a stylistic thing? So that's that'd be my final question.
I guess my final question would be, and I just kind of accidental because 7 at the bottom of the screen, verse 7 is there. It says, observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you, or because the Lord your God's bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, streams, deep springs gushing out into the valleys and hills, and so on. So the key here, this gets us kind of, into the next verse a little bit, but that, for, because, when, as though, because that. So my question going back into 8:6 is he telling it seems that whoever is telling whom to obey the commands, are they obeying the commands because that's the kind of behavior that is the behavior that is fitting for the land you're going into? Or the Lord is taking you there because you're obeying and walking and revering or fearing. You see, what is it? Is the Lord taking you in the land because of your behavior? Or is this the behavior that's fitting for the land? Is this purposive, resultive? Yeah, what's going on here in the connection with the key in the following verse in 7?
That's a good one.
So I think that's it. You guys can Google, just if you're more interested in the divine name stuff. I just Googled Andrew Case Jehovah, and he's got an academia.edu, a long paper that comes up. It's on there for free. Anybody can read it. So you guys might be interested in that. But yeah, we'll stop there. Jam, good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Hope things are going well. And everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we hope this helps you in your biblical study, your reading, your researching, prepping to teach or preach or whatever you're doing. Or if you're just a good student of the Bible and you love doing this kind of thing, we hope it's inspiring and encouraging to you. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, head to discipledojo.org, and lots of good stuff over there. We'll check out here. We'll see you next time. We hope that helps.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.